Alright guys, so we can all agree that the planning phase is one of the important phases in the lifetime of any other project. So in this video, we're going to be identifying the tools that you're going to be using and the approach that we are going to be taking to build our application. Also, we are going to structure our projects directory, that is all the subdirectories that our project needs and all the files that you're going to need so that in the next video, we start coding. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, in the context of our application, the approach that you're going to be taking refers to the software design pattern that you're going to be using. Now, the software design pattern that you're going to be using for this video is the MVT software design pattern. Now, I've selected this design pattern due to its simplicity and elegance in terms of implementation. Okay, so we're going to be having the templates, the views, the models, and finally, of course, the database. Now, the templates is going to be built around Kivy and KivyMD. It's here that you're going to create the UI that is going to allow the user to interact with the application and perform create, read, update, and delete operations on the task that they have on the application. Now, the create, read, update, and delete operations are going to be handled by the views. It's in here that we are going to define functions that are going to directly interface with the models and interface with the templates. Now, in terms of creating tasks, the views is going to interface with the models. Now, in terms of reading tasks, the views is going to also interface with the models, but this is going to be manifested in the templates. In the models, we are going to define classes that represent the data sets that we expect to receive from the user. That is that data set that represent the user information and data set that represents the task information. We're going to be defining two classes for the user data and another class for the task data. Now, these classes are going to be defined using Pydantic base model. Now, the reason why I have selected Pydantic base model for this is because Pydantic will perform validation on our behalf, right? That means reducing the lines of code that we have to write. And I also choose Pydantic because of its readability and simplicity in terms of implementation. And then finally, the database that you're going to be using is TinyDB. Now, TinyDB is an equivalent of SQLite, but instead of being an SQL database, it's a NoSQL database that has been implemented using Python. All right, guys. Now that we have that out of the way, the next step is to create our project directory and populate it with subdirectories and files that are going to be required by our application. I've already created a folder on my desktop and have populated it with all the files that you're going to require. So don't worry about that. There's a link to the startup code in the description below. So be sure to create a directory, and then inside that directory, just clone the startup code and you'll be ready to go. Let me open the directory so that we can explore the files that we have. So to do that, I'm going to open my terminal. I'm going to cd to desktop. Okay. Inside desktop, I'm going to cd to TODO App. And inside here, I'm going to open code, right? Now, if we look at the files that we have, so we have a main.py file, basically the entry point of our application. We are also going to be using hot reload. That's why our code has been configured to work with hot reload. If you don't know how to work with hot reload, I have a video on the same. The link is in the description below. So be sure to check it out so that you can follow along comfortably. Now, this is basically the entry point of our application. And then inside the app files is where we're going to have all the files that you require. That is the models.py, the templates.py, the views.py. Now we say that the templates.py is where we're going to define all our UI components. In the views.py is where we're going to define all the functions that are going to allow the templates and the models to interface. And in the models is where we're going to define all the classes that are going to represent the data that our application is going to expect, okay? And then apart from the app files, we also have a Kivy files directory. In here, we have the kivylang.kv file. This is where we're going to define all the root widgets and other widgets that are going to be used to compose our UI. And then finally, we have the TODO App. This is basically the virtual environment of application. Let us fire up our application for the first time and see what we get. So to do that, I have the virtual environment activated. After you've cloned the startup code, be sure to create a virtual environment, activate it, and install the required libraries. Now, what we're going to require for this, Kivy, KivyMD, and Kaki for start. The rest of the libraries that you're going to require in future are going to be installed as we progress, okay? So be sure to install all the 3 libraries so that you can be able to follow comfortably. Next, we are going to fire up our application for the first time. So to do that, because we're using hot reload, we're going to be using a different command, that is debug, set it to 1, that is to true, and then Python 3, and then main.py. And with that, we have our application running. Now that we have completed the planning phase, in the next video, we're going to start creating the UI components of our application. If you have any questions or thoughts, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next. Bye.